Today, answers matter more than ever before. That's why IBM is helping businesses manage customer questions with Watson Assistant. It's conversational AI designed to work for any industry. Let's put smart to work. Visit IBM.com/Watson Assistant.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast, sponsored by Lono Coffee. Visit lonocoffee.com, use promo code COFFEE2020 for a discount. Think holiday shopping, folks. Today, yet another crushing loss for Washington. I talked to the Team 980's Kevin Sheehan about the loss, what we saw from Alex Smith, what's going on with the defense. Are there signs of progress overall? We'll chat. And I also share my observations from the quarterback to Chase Young and more. Something that stood out about Young behind the scenes. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com, and you can follow Kevin on Twitter at Kevin Sheehan DC. Listen to him on the Team 980 in the morning, and he has a podcast, The Kevin Sheehan Show. Before I get to my conversation with Kevin, here are a few of my observations. And I'll start with Chase Young, since a lot will move toward Alex Smith, both with myself and Kevin. But I want to start with Young because I don't think that he had an overall great game. I've seen him play better. I don't think he was applying a ton of pressure. I do think he'll be a damn good player still, and it's because of what you see and hear behind the scenes. And that was evident just by him coming on the Zoom session after the game. He had a crucial and killer mistake on Detroit's last drive, giving the Lions a free 15 yards on an incomplete pass. You can say it wasn't a great call by officials. Well, what I know is that you can't give the officials the opportunity to make that call, and he did have time to stop. Wasn't an egregious shove, but it happened, and he had time. He knows it too, but what I like is how he handled it after the game. He asked the PR staff to go on the Zoom call and talk to reporters about it because he wanted to own the call and the play. In the Zoom era, it's far easier for guys to duck the media after the game. Quarterbacks have to talk, but others can hide. It's hard for the PR staff to sometimes get guys to the podium on Zoom. When you're in a locker room, it's harder to do that because we're there. Most of the time, you're in the room before those guys have a chance to get out. Once in a while, a guy slips out, but not in this case. I'm guessing it would have been there. In the Zoom era, again, they don't have to do it because that's just how it's been. So give Young, it's not so much they don't have to do it, they can duck it easier. So give Young credit for how he handled it. It speaks to his maturity and his accountability. He's still learning as a pass rusher, and his adjustments have been a little bit tougher in that area than I anticipated. But I don't doubt for a second that he's going to ascend, and his mature approach is a big reason why. It's also true that not one play decided that game. Dustin Hopkins keeps missing field goals that factor in games. That's now 2 games this season where his miss was devastating. The first Giants game and today. He's missed 4 kicks this season. The other one was in the win over the Eagles and then in the loss to the Ravens. Hopkins missed practice all week with a groin issue, but I was told he looked good Saturday, even made 2 kicks from 50 yards. But the missed 43-yarder was a killer, and I'm sure for some of you, too predictable. Today's miss certainly cost them a shot at overtime. Maybe Washington handles its last drive, the game time drive, differently if the game had already been tied, so who knows how it would have played out. They had to be aggressive, and they were. I'm guessing they still would have been, but man, those misses are killers. Just as devastating, having a great drive on the first series and losing 10 yards on a 2nd and 2 reverse. They felt the end had been crashing hard throughout that series, and they felt he was ripe for a reverse. Turns out they were wrong. I will say when he took off upfield, when he took off upfield and went straight upfield, they couldn't account for him with the blocking. Cornelius Lucas was on that side, but he's going inside to wall it off. And if the end goes inside, they did have a wall there for J.D. McKissick. Certainly would have gained a first down, and maybe more, and certainly more than that, had the end played it the way they thought he was going to play. During the game, I kind of felt like they didn't necessarily have to do that, but I know the Turner mindset, going back to his dad, Norv, and Scott Turner, when you feel like you have momentum, that's when you can run those plays. And again, if they were seeing it, and this is something I want to go back and watch to see how much the end was crashing, because that's why they would have done that. And again, they were wrong because the guy made a nice play. And then on the next play, the sack. with Smith, took him out of field goal range. That just can't happen, and that took away a chance for points. Terry McLaurin's fumble near the end of the first half was equally devastating. They had 1:20 left. We're at the 33 when McLaurin fumbled the ball. I think it was around the 30. So not only did it take away a chance for points, it led to another chance for the Lions, and they converted with another long field goal. That's 9 points minimum, and this team is just not good enough to overcome that sort of gift giving. But it also speaks to the defense. When they need to stop teams, they simply don't. The offense was dominating the first half, and the defense stunk. Now, I say dominating the time of possession, but it shows you the misnomer of time of possession, because all that matters is what are you putting on the scoreboard, and Detroit was converting and Washington wasn't. So while they were dominating yards, or at least with that, they certainly weren't dominating on the scoreboard. The defense tried to counter Detroit's jumbo package with 5 D linemen at times, and it still struggled to stop the run in those cases. It did work in the second half, but not in the first. It's not always just the linebackers either. I saw Young getting pinned inside a couple times, like on Adrian Peterson's 13-yard run around the end where he kind of hesitated at the line and bounced outside. I saw Jonathan Allen getting moved out of his gap once in a while, and I saw those guys making plays too. I saw the secondary continue to give up big plays. And yeah, the linebackers don't make a lot of plays. I expected far more from the defense this season, in part because of that talent up front. Still a good place to build for this defense for the future, no doubt. We knew the back seven would suffer some growing pains, or we should have known. And that was my concern going into the season, was that back seven. They need some more playmakers out there, and that's what I think that Young needs to start giving them as a pass rusher, because he's got to be the guy who is the playmaker. And again, I still think he will get there. And for those looking at San Francisco, that was a model for what Washington was going to try and follow defensively. Well, 2 years ago, they had the 27th ranked defense. A year later, they were one of the best. Rebuilds are always ugly along the way. I think what they have to show, though, is growth in the second half of the season. I think for fans, for them, for Chase Young, what would be good to see is for him to start making some plays in the pass game. We've seen the double teams. We've seen sometimes triple teams. There have been a lot of times where they're giving him a lot of attention. So, yeah, others have to do it, but it would be good to see him beat a guy off the edge because of the way he's playing. Too often he's too square into the offensive, the blocker. And I think I've told you that before. That's an issue. He's got to be able to cut down that blocker in half, and he hasn't been doing that enough. When he starts doing that, I think he'll make more plays. But if he makes some plays in the second half of the year, I think that would be a good sign going forward. But again, I think he's going to be really good anyway. Now, before I play my conversation with Kevin, let's talk about Alex Smith. I want to begin with something Ron Rivera talked about after the game, and that's how Smith's play is helping the young guys develop. I absolutely agree. Do not take that as a shot at Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins is not at the point where he can help those young guys develop. And that's not because of him. It's because of where he's at in his own progress. It's hard to ask a young guy to help other young guys develop. I think it'd be the same thing with Kyle Allen. I mean, they've only seen so much in the NFL. No, that's not about them. This is a nod towards someone who has seen everything the NFL has to offer in Smith. It's just the contrast in experience and wisdom that Smith has. It gives Smith a calm presence, something the team missed after he got hurt in 2018. But it also leads him to talking to the receivers on the bench about what he's seeing and what they can do. He knows the playbook so well, he can tell Isaiah Wright, as he did Sunday, what the play is, and it allows Wright to play faster if there's any confusion on his part. He goes through his progressions the right way, and that's something that wasn't being done earlier in the year. And that lets guys know if they get open, they're going to get the ball. He handles the protection calls, the motions calls. All those help these guys. Let's not make Smith into Tom Brady, but he does help this team. Develop, and he has played well the last 2 games for what we've seen of him in the past. For those who just want Haskins in there, when he's playing, he's only helping himself develop. Not a shot, just reality, because he's so young. Haskins is trying to figure it out himself. Smith already figured it out, and he can share that knowledge. When they have other young players having a calm voice like Smith, that certainly helps. And this gives the coaches a better idea of what some of these players can do. Look at Cam Sims, 4 catches for 54 yards, and now he has 7 catches for 164 yards in his last 2 games. He's ascending in part because of the quarterback play. You might be wondering, well, why didn't they put Smith in there in the first time? It's a good question, but I also don't think they were fully ready to trust Smith yet. Again, they wanted to put him on IR to start the season. Smith kind of had to lobby hard for him to be on the roster. And then they had no choice because of injuries, and now this is the benefit that they're seeing. I don't know that they even expected it to go the way it has as far as the yards that they're gaining. I will say the offense looks a lot better lately. Their big issue has been self-inflicted wounds as much as anything. And a tip of the cap to tackle Morgan Moses for switching to the left side during the game for Cornelius Lucas and David Sharp for going and handling the right side. That was a tough situation, and they handled it well. I'll also say I've been wrong every step of the way with Smith, and I'm happy to say that. A lot of my knowledge or my thought process came from what people in the organization felt about his ability to come back or even make the team or then even contribute. I thought he'd go on IR. He almost did. I didn't think he'd play because I felt it would be Haskins and Allen all year. And I certainly didn't think he'd play as well as he has. He's more comfortable in this offense than he was 2 years ago. He's taken advantage of what the talent around him has to offer, and he certainly is helping. Finally, this was a devastating loss. Had they not come back, to me, it would have marked the worst game of Ron Rivera's first season. This team does fight, and that'll be part of the foundation moving forward. Of course, it would also be good to not fall behind by so much against bad teams. That must change. I felt they had to come out of the stretch with a 2-2 record, with games upcoming against the Bengals and Dallas. That remains possible, and I don't say that for NFC East contention purposes, but rather for program growth. They need to start winning these close games, especially against teams that are at the same level. That will show progress not just for the players, but for the fans. And if you want people to be patient, you need to give them a reason why they should be so. That's it from me. After this break, I'll be back with Kevin Sheehan.
Support for this podcast comes from AT&T. All right, so to stay connected, AT&T Business has the only wireless plan your teams need. With mobile hotspot data up to 100 gigabytes, they can easily use their phones to connect tablets and laptops to the internet from really virtually wherever work takes them, giving them the power to boost productivity even on the go. Upgrade to AT&T Business and get our best plan with nationwide 5G and 100 gigabytes in mobile hotspot data. Visit att.com/business elite. Terms and conditions apply.
You've heard me talking about Lono Coffee for a couple months now. Let me tell you a little bit about who they are and what they're about. Lono Coffee is based in the Shenandoah Valley, just a nice bunch of people who are open for business during this trying time. Just look at their website, loneoakcoffee.com, and what do they highlight? Their core values of quality, family, transparency. They work with co-op farmers from all over the world to source their beans. They also support small farmers to find the right beans. During this pandemic, one of my saving graces has been grinding my beans from Lono Coffee and taking a few minutes before the day to savor the coffee, get my mind right. Put a little jazz or Frank Sinatra or Louis Armstrong on in the background, it's even better. I've enjoyed all their blends, but among my favorites, the Ethiopian Guji, love the berry flavor, the Mexican Chiapas, and their house blend. Start your day off right with Lono Coffee. Visit loneoakcoffee.com, that's LONEOAK coffee.com. Use promo code COFFEE2020 for a discount. You can thank me later. Welcome back. Now here's my conversation with Kevin Sheehan. Well, Kevin, it's kind of an unusual spot for me to be in where I'm asking you the questions I'm so used to going on your show. So I appreciate you coming on because I always like talking ball with you. But with this game, first of all, it was a crushing defeat. But I want to start with Alex Smith and just get your impressions on what you saw from him Sunday.
John, it was a brilliant performance by him. And it's funny because I was sitting here just an hour ago and I got onto social media and I'm reading various things and I saw and listened. And I don't get the impression that other people feel the same way, which is fine. I mean, I don't care if I'm out there on my own. It was a wow performance. It was brilliant. I can't get over it. I'm gonna lead my show with obviously the game, but I'm gonna lead it with Alex Smith because I was so wrong. I mean, I called for him to be cut 2 weeks ago, and that this is a path to nowhere. And I don't know that I'm changing my mind on that because he is 36 going on 37 years old. But you know what's what's really apparent in this game, start to finish start, and last week's second half is that this is just a much better offense for him than what Jay Gruden was trying to provide to him in 2018. I think you could also make the case that maybe the weapons are a little bit better, which is incredible for us to say that, but there was no Terry McLaurin on that team. It was Paul Richardson. They had Josh Doxson on the team. They did have Adrian Peterson, but the two backs here are weapons. McLaurin's a weapon. Cam Sims is turning into a player. The read, quick, get it out quickly, have it checked down available on almost every play really works for him. I mean, look, he strapped that team to his back down 24-3 in a similar way to what he did last week down 20-3. They converted 34 first downs, 22 of them by throwing the football. He threw the football for 22 first downs in a game. I was blown away, impressed.
It's
I
amazing.
thought he put on a clinic, an absolute clinic, in how to play that scheme, that offense in the second half. It's a shame he didn't get a chance.
It's funny that you said
with the ball.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's where the typical outcome kind of came into play. But as far as Alex goes, it's funny that you said that you were wrong, because I know going on your show, you would ask me, is he going to make the team? Like, I don't think so. They want to put him on IR. Is he going to do this? I don't think so. Is he going to do this? I don't think so. And every step of the way, I've been wrong on this. And I say this, I even said this earlier in my show. I'm happy to say that because it's been fun to watch him, what he's doing. Do you think this is as much about him or maybe what this offense can be when it's operated a certain way?
I think we're on the verge of seeing similar results with Kyle Allen. I thought he looked really comfortable before he got hurt last week. They have become a prolific third down offense the last 4 weeks. I don't know where they are percentage-wise. I'd have to do the math. They were 57% going into last week. Last week wasn't great. Today, I think they were over 50% on third down. They converted 2 fourth downs, one by penalty, which was sort of a gift. But they, I think both of those guys, look, what's really obvious, John, is that Rivera and Turner have known Turner for sure. He knew all along that his offense would look much better with somebody other than Dwayne Haskins running it. And you know what? He's right. It's looked much better. We can talk about the opponents, not great teams. The Giants aren't terrible defensively, but not great teams in Dallas and Detroit defensively. I get that, but they had 34 first downs in a game today. I mean, 34.
464 yards.
They weren't down 24-3 because of anything that Alex Smith, the offense, did. I mean, McLaurin had the fumble, but Hopkins missed a field goal. For whatever reason, Rivera chose not to kick a field goal on the opening drive indoors from 54 or 55 yards out. They scored on 4 of the 9 drives, and it should have been 6 of the 9. If Hopkins makes a field goal and McLaurin doesn't fumble. It's been a very productive offensive football team over the last month. I mean, you're fine to tell me and anybody else, well, look at who they're playing. I'll concede that point. But they've had a chance to win 4 football games in a row. They've only won one of them, unfortunately, because of their own self-inflicted mistakes. But they've had a chance now in 4 straight games to win games. Their 3 losses are by 7 points total.
Does this change your perception of what Smith might offer this franchise moving forward? And it's funny because a week ago I would say there's no way. I mean, I'm going to amend that or just say that I still think that they're going to be aggressive looking for another quarterback, maybe in the draft. But does it change your thought on what maybe he could do going forward?
I bet it's changing their thought. And I don't know what their thought was to begin with, but if it was more likely than not, we're going to release him. Remember, like you said, I remember our conversation about whether or not he was going to make the team or not. And remember Rivera said, I had this conversation with him. It was on September 1st. You wrote that story about how the conversation about what they were talking about. And Alex said, I want to play. I want to be on that roster. And I don't think it's the right path to take. I think they've got to find somebody in the draft, or they could go into free agency and get somebody much better. But with that said, what he did today was just what he's done really going back to last week. The Rams game was a disaster, but, it was raining. It was his first appearance. It was coming off the bench. He was obviously nervous. I don't know. I wouldn't go in that direction to answer it, but I'm starting to wonder if they think they can bring Alex and Kyle back, maybe draft somebody, maybe not. There's going to be a guy like Micah Parsons there. Maybe when they draft, another big-time receiver in Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase. There are going to be some guys there that, but they've only won 2 games, so they are in the hunt for a very high pick.
Yes, they are. But that's why I say,
even though I don't think they stink.
Right, and I'm going to get to the progress in a minute, but that's why I asked I wonder if, and this would be a question for them, if that when you see what he's doing, is it more about the possibilities of what they think the offense can do versus what Alex Smith is necessarily showing? And that what he's done has been really good, but I wonder if it's as much about like, hey, you get a guy who can run this, and this is how it can look like.
You know what, John? I was just thinking about, we could be in this offseason in that situation that like Jay was in. I know it's only year 2 of Ron. I'm not running him out of here. It's not about me. It's about the owner or whomever the ownership might be. But, he may feel the pressure to make a lot of progress with wins and losses next year. And drafting a young rookie quarterback and playing that rookie quarterback doesn't get you there until 2022 at the earliest, more likely than not. I mean, I guess we could have, but Joe Burrow's not winning games. Justin Herbert's playing great, but he's not winning games. So anyway, I don't know what the answer is. I prefer a longer term vision, and I don't think Alex Smith fits into that. But we know with this organization, a lot of what makes sense long term doesn't always make sense.
Well, and I think if they somehow brought him back, and I'm not ready to jump to that point yet because there's still 7 more games left here. But if they did bring him back, I still think they're going to draft somebody and get someone ready that they want from the draft, whether it's a 2nd-round pick, 1st-round pick, whatever. I think they'd find somebody and then go from there. Have you seen the progress you'd hope to see? And we can look at the record, but have you seen the progress you would hope to see out of this team?
First of all, I think it's a really good question because you and I both know so many people that are like, well, they're 2-7. So what do you mean progress?
Right.
Like you don't judge this program where it is right now with a brand new coach, with how bad they've been on wins and losses in 2019, in 2020. You look for hints, you look for glimmers of light, you look for what you just described, progress. And I think we've seen it in spots. First of all, they're still competing. They have not thrown in the towel despite the record. I think we've seen talent and playmaking ability that we haven't seen on this roster in a long time. Boy, there's a storm coming through here.
We've rolled through here earlier.
Yeah.
And it was nasty.
Yeah. And so, I think that, we know that they've got talent up front defensively. They certainly need more of it in the linebacking core. Terry McLaurin is a star in the making. I think it's always hard with this organization because, as my good friend and longtime partner Tom Libero says, everything comes with the Surgeon General's warning when it comes to this organization. It's owned by Dan Snyder.
Yeah.
So, but if we take that out of it and we're just sort of judging it on what we're looking at, this team's much better than the team last year. But, it's still not very good. It still has a big question mark at the most important position on the field. And so, I don't know. It's hard to say. I would say that I'm not convinced about anything yet. And that's not even taking the owner into consideration. But I do think this team has improved from last year's team despite the record.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that Rivera made a point, and I talked about this earlier in my own portion, was how Smith helps the younger players develop too. And I think that's something that, so if nothing else, so while there will still be a question at quarterback, I think going forward, maybe they start to learn a little bit more about some of the Cam Sims and Isaiah Wrights of the world. And as much as anything, which is a big part, which is a part of their decision-making progress or process in the offseason as well.
There is that conversation now, right? Do we play Dwayne just to give him one more chance? I mean, is it just, look, most of the players they're playing are young anyway. It's not like you're going to be benching veterans for young players. Almost everybody that's playing is young, except for Alex now and Kerrigan. You know what we're going to get, though? I don't know if we got it in the post-game show because I haven't listened to it yet, or his post-game Zoom, is, well, you know what? Look what happened in the division. We're still in it.
Well, I think they're at
because I mean, Philly loses to the Giants, and he might talk about the Giants owning the tiebreaker, but the schedules of these teams remaining are brutal. I mean,
I know
it's going to be one of those situations. If they go and they beat Cincinnati next week, and they probably won't, and the Giants and the Eagles lose, you're going to be like, okay, here we go. Why not?
Well, I think I will say, I think they're kind of at the point where it's almost like win a couple games before you start talking about that again, no matter where, because he didn't really bite on that today, which is I'm glad to see, because I do think that if you win the next 2 games, then you can start talking about it again, or at least it can become a topic, not just even for them, but for me, because I'm not going there until they win a couple games. Let's finish up here on a couple things. Chase Young, and I know he had the penalty today. Have you been okay with what you've seen from him?
Yeah, I thought today was the worst defensive outing of the year. I mean, I think they were lost in coverage a couple of times. I thought the 2nd and 20 blitz that they got burned on the screen. That's 2nd and 20. You got to get off the field. And you don't get off the field by taking high risks, and they took a high risk there. The play that really angers me is the 6-second play, to play as soft as they did with Prater being the kicker on the other end.
Right.
Like, that was bad coaching there at the end. I mean, you got to know that you're up against the guy that owns the NFL record for the longest field goal, and he's kicking indoors. Okay, so you've got to play coverage, and by the way, you've got to get a pass rush, and if you decide to drop into zone coverage, you got to make sure that you're not giving up something easy underneath quickly. It's 6 seconds. That was poor. Look, Chase Young, everybody's game planning for him. You saw it today. He was getting chipped. He was getting doubled with tight ends involved. But we certainly haven't the last 2 weeks. I don't think we've seen what we saw early in the season before he missed a game with an injury. Did he miss 1 game or 2?
1 game.
No. Yeah. So, he's getting a lot of attention for a rookie 9 games into his rookie
He's
season.
getting double and triple teamed. I thought today was his toughest game as far as, like, even against the run. I think some of the blocking schemes that they were able to pin him inside a little bit. But last thing I got to ask you, because I know what you like to do. Did you have any money on the Browns today?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You saw what happened at the end of that game.
Houston got a backdoor late cover.
No. Well, Nick Chubb would have – the line was 4.5.
Went down on the 59-yard run.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was wondering, well, I hope you didn't lose.
No, I didn't like that game. I am sitting here watching because I've got Arizona laying 2.5 against Buffalo, and they're up 26-23, and Buffalo's getting ready to score. It's been a rough day all the way around.
Well,
it's a very interesting NFL though that we've got going on right now.
Look
at the NFC West, John. At the end of today, Seattle's getting beat, Arizona's getting beat. The Rams could be in first place. The 49ers are done. There's just the Miami won again today. All of a sudden, what are the Dolphins now? Are they 6-3? Oh my God, that's crazy.
And two is 3-0 as a starter.
What a job Brian Flores is doing.
I like that hire, and I liked what I saw from them last year. Even when this team went down there and played them, the way they played, they should have won that game. But the way they played, despite being a really bad team, they played hard, and I think it sets a foundation, if nothing else. But I liked what I saw from them last year as well.
Totally agree.
Well, listen, Kevin, I'll let you go watch that game. You can hopefully salvage your day. So good luck with that.
Stephon Diggs just caught the go-ahead score.
Okay, well, good luck with that one.
John, I love whenever you want me to be. I owe you about 900 visits to your podcast for us to be even.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you, John.
Take care. That's it for this episode. Rebuilds aren't fun, folks. Thanks to Kevin Sheehan for coming on, and thank you, as always, for listening. Hang in there. And thanks to Lone Oak for their continued support. I'll be back with more shows Wednesday and Thursday. I'll talk to you next time.